handle all of the garage designs, all of the shop designs, and also now the home solutions for Destination OG. I want to walk you through another garage here today that we did for a client of ours, Chris, who has a little bit of an oversized 2-car garage, and I'm going to take a little bit of a different path now and show you some of the deliverables that we were able to provide Chris, talk about some of the changes that we made along the way, and hopefully you'll be able to take some stuff from this that'll help you in your garage as you're planning it out or building it or just going through the process of design with us even. So let's go ahead and start here. This is our design proposal. Now this has gone through several iterations over time, and it's gone through several iterations over time with Chris specifically. So, we had an initial design that we provided with him, and then we've gone through, probably 10, 15 different revisions of, changing cabinets from one place to another, changing floor color, or, redoing the lighting with a different design. And this one is the last one that we did, which you will see as we go through this is actually extremely close to what his garage is actually looking like now, which is really cool. So he's actually started installing some of the items that we designed out for him. I guess we just chose the lottery just right on which cabinets he needed to get, and we didn't select any of the ones that were on back order or whatever, so he got his cabinets super fast and was able to install them. So you'll see that as we go through, but let me just walk you through the design proposal that you can expect to get from us, and maybe it'll kind of give you some ideas for yourself. So this is the cover page. We just title it the client's name. We usually get a little bit more descriptive than this. We've pared this down for the videos so that way we're not giving away any identifying information or anything like that. So this is Chris's garage. We've got the date on there, OG the drafting room. This is our branding for this department within Obsessed Garage. We wanted to differentiate it from just, hey, this is Obsessed Garage and we do garage designs, to where this is the drafting room. This is where you come to work with us and get ideas for your garage, to plan out your space and all of that. So we tried to really give it its own branding and stuff, which I think is really cool. Lewis and I worked a lot on the look and feel of these documents, and I love the way they came out. So this is a photo from the Atlanta garage that we did. Just tweaked some of the colors and stuff like that to give it a nice warm feel. The inside page is just some information from us and for the client. Usually it'll have like the client's name, address, phone number, things like that here in this space, along with the date. So we always date all of our documents to make sure that we keep up with what's what. And in the design proposal, we'll always do a floor plan first. So we don't get into the nitty-gritty of all the dimensions and stuff like that with a design proposal. This is just for design. Hey, do you like the way this looks? Is this working for you? Do you think, do you like this type of cabinet, or you like this type of cabinet, or do you want to put these cabinets over in another area, or maybe the pressure washer in a different area? So this is the first real page that you're presented with. If we have any notes or anything, we'll usually write it in here in this area. And this kind of just gives you a overview of the floor plan. You can see that this is I think it's a 16 or 18 foot door for Chris's garage. So really this area right here in the middle is what a normal 2-car garage would be. His is 20 feet deep, so it's not very deep, but it's 28 feet wide. So he has all the space in the world to the left and the right to be able to do cabinets and pressure washer and all that stuff. So you'll notice we didn't really put a lot of stuff on the back wall. And as we get into the renders, you'll see, what is there is not really taking up a ton of space. So this gives you just a good bird's eye overview of the plan. And then we go into just some general interior views to show the whole space. So we'll usually do 2 or 3, 4 pages if necessary, if the space is really big, with 3 or 4 different shots, different views. So you can see where we've got the cabinets over on the left wall. He's got some Tesla chargers. This is the mini split AC, which you remember from here shows up on the floor plan. So that's not actually taking up valuable wall space, down here, but we got the Tesla chargers or Tesla walls, and then the actual Tesla charger is up by the front. Next page, we've got it's just some other views. So you can see the back wall a little bit better. You can see where he's got this other cabinet array over on the right side, which is really tight up against, the refrigerator and stuff. Ideally, you wouldn't want to have this refrigerator right there, but it's something that is integral to the way that they use their garage and store things. So we really wanted to be able to keep that in the space. And because they have plumbing over on this area, it made sense to keep it there. So this just gives you a good quick snapshot of the general overall plan for the space. And then as we get into the next pages, we really dial in or get into the specifics on cabinets and on the other items in the garage. So you can see we've got a closer up view of the cabinet setup, along with what cabinets are going to be included in that. We always go from left to right if we can. So we've got the 650, net first, and then we've got the 723 drawer, the 890 double door, the 720 waste bin. We don't list the 890 double door twice. We're just listing out the components that are in here. And then we've got the 6 drawer. We don't list out in these plans, all the little back panels and posts and stuff like that. Again, this is just for a general overview. Hey, do you like this layout? Is this going to work for you? Same thing with the array on the other side. Let's see, let's go to the next page. This is lighting. Again, just gives a nice little quick snapshot overview talking about the lighting layout. This is actually an error. I'm not sure why this is on there. Probably left over from one of our other designs that we did, but you could set this up on not a dimmer switch, so maybe it was just we mistyped that, but an actual switch. You could do a Caseta switch that would be able to be controlled from your smart home stuff to turn on or off the OG overhead lights, but they're not dimming, so we wouldn't do a dimmer switch there. Next, we've got the Swiss Tracks layout, which is pretty cool. We've got the close-ups of the Krenzla K1322 custom install solution, ironically with an AR630. We don't have a CAD file of a Krenzla right now, so we make do with what we have, which is an AR. So it looks cool though. And then that's the end. So that's our design proposal. And then as we go through revisions in design, and then we get to a point of either, hey, I need to know where all this stuff is going to be, or we're done with the proposal, hey, really like this, let's go forward with this design, start pricing it out, start speccing it out in terms of the technical drawings. Technical drawings are the next document that we get into. So this is just a generic image from another garage that we did in kind of a cool, black and white, gray and white format. Same inside cover page, same initial first floor plan as the design proposal, but then we get into some more detailed, we show all the dimensions of, different walls and all the things that we took into consideration. A builder's not going to use this to build a garage, and a lot of times these garages will already be built, but it at least gives the client the checks and balances to know whether or not we got our dimensions accurate, or they provided the correct dimensions, because we're not there to measure your garage out, so we have to take your word for it. If you measure it at a certain dimension, well, that's what it is, and we're going to go off of that. I think with Chris, we had to take dimensions a few times because we wanted to change locations on some cabinets and put something in a different wall and so on and so forth. So we got more and more refined as we went through the process with him. We've called out a few of the views that we'll be looking at in this plan at the end of the document with E1, E2, and E3 for some of the elevation views. This is a quick lighting plan view, so it's showing, you know, where the switch is for the garage. And then the wiring may be different, you know, how he does it. We're not electricians. We don't know the exact wiring of how it is in the attic or in the ceiling for every garage, but we at least just show that, hey, all of these lights are going to be on the same circuit and going to the same switch. There's no reason to have multiple zones, or at least this is how Chris wanted to do it. Also shown here are the under cabinet lights, but those would usually be on a separate either switch or their own, you know, plug and switch. We've got the electrical plan, so we're detailing all of the outlets that we've included into the space and where they are in relation to their walls. And then we've called them all out. So we've got E1, E1, E01, E2, E6, E5, 7, 5, 3 and 4, 8 is the switch. And then over here we actually, it's probably hard for you to see on camera. Let me zoom in a little bit. So then we have those called out here in this box so that you know what's what. So we give the dimension off the wall that that's supposed to be. E06 is there. And then we also give the height that it should be relative to the ground, and I believe this is centered on the outlet. So that way you know exactly where all your outlets are supposed to be, or, you know, if it's an outlet you already have. Next up we have the cabinet plan. So this isn't really too detailed, but it does specify each individual cabinet, what their dimensions are, the quantity that we're going to have for the space, and then you know, how large the arrays are going to be overall width-wise. We give you depth and everything for all the cabinets and everything as well. Pressure washer install to give you information on like where your center line is going to be, where it's going to be positioned on the wall. Plumbing plan, so we have this labeled as the water inlet. And then if you zoom in, we'll send you a PDF file, you can actually see that, hey, this is cold and hot water. Or actually this one's just cold water. It would say CH, I believe it was hot water. But you can see, you can really zoom pretty far in on these PDFs to really get all the details of exactly what part's what with some of these items, which is pretty cool. It's come a long way since I was sending screenshots and email and, hey, here's your design, here's what to do. Again, now we're showing elevation views, where the outlets are and where the different pressure washer items need to be. Zoom in on that for you there so you can see where we've specified for the shelf, the top of the shelf, the top of the hose reel bracket, the top of the CR spotless bracket, the height of the water inlet for the pressure washer. And you remember from the previous plumbing page, we showed you how far off the wall. This elevation view shows you how far up. So those are all of the, actually I think I got another page here, but these are all the main technical drawings. So you can see there's another elevation view to show these outlets behind the cabinets. But that is the main gist of the general deliverables that we provide. If we're doing a heavy-duty lighting plan, we may share a lighting deliverable as well that would be detailing out, you know, zones and scenes and stuff like that. We've done that a couple times for really large projects where we've had a lot of intricate zoning and scene planning that we've had to do for different lighting layouts. So that might be another deliverable that you might see. The last deliverable is something that we haven't really initiated fully yet, But it's something that I hope we get to soon, to where we'll be able to offer this for every client, or at least almost every client, and that is the Photobook. And what that is a very clean, minimal, just photo book of renders, drawings, anything that we put together through the course of designing your build, and putting it into a nice little package that you can look at or share or print out if you wanted to. Just a little something extra that's not just the typical design proposal or anything like that. So this is an example of the photo book, and this is one we did for Chris. So this has a render that we did for the garage from this view, and then from there I actually did not do the drawing first. Sometimes we'll do a drawing first, sketch on paper to come up with an idea or to really see where we should take the design. Sometimes it works better to do that on paper rather than digitally. This one we already had it designed, so then I just kind of looked at the design from a 3D aspect, found a good view that I liked, and then sketched it out. So it was all freehand. I wasn't tracing or anything like that, but you'll see the similarities of what we built out versus what we drew was really cool. I do the drawings not necessarily because they're needed. I just think they're really cool. They make for good social media posts and stuff like that. I like sharing them because I like drawing them. I like looking at them. So it's just a cool other thing to be able to provide to help personalize your garage or your shop. So this one was pretty cool. So we did a couple different photos of that. And then we just did some other marquee renders of the space. So let's go back to the start here. We have first render. We've got a couple photos of the drawing. Then we've got another render looking at the back. So these are rendered out a little bit better than what we have in the normal design. So this is just the regular view, which looks really good, but it's not rendered out with ray tracing and all of that stuff like we have here in this photo. Just kind of showing different aspects of the design, much like the design proposal regular general views, but rendered out a little bit nicer. And that's pretty much it. So it's nothing crazy, but it's something that I hope that we can start providing for all of our clients. All right, so since Chris's garage has already begun to be completed, he's got the cabinets in there, he's got the flooring in there, he's got the lighting, there's really not a ton more to do. I think he's got a few more things to install, like the pressure washer and stuff like that. He's waiting on plumbing and whatnot. Let me walk you through what the garage was when Chris first reached out, and then I'll be able to show you some really cool visual representation of where it is now and how that relates to the renders that we have and the drawing that I did. And it's crazy because it's like the exact same image. It's pretty cool. He sent me a picture one day via text, and it was almost the same angle. I'm like, oh man, can you move a little bit closer to the garage? Or here's my drawing. Can you try and get that same angle? And he was able to pretty much nail it. And so it's pretty cool to see the render, the drawing, as well as his photograph of where it stands now. And it's like the same thing. So it's pretty cool to be able to see, but we'll get to that here in a second. So here's the garage as it was when he reached out. And he just sent us a few different images. Oh, those are the same. You see he's got the Tesla charger originally on the back wall. He sent a nice panoramic view. So originally he wanted to keep the pressure washer over here because he didn't have plumbing really in the garage, and he was just pulling his hose around from the other side and connecting it up here to the pressure washer. So originally his plan was just to stick with that. But we convinced him, I think, to go ahead and figure out the plumbing, and he's going to tie into the main water line that's over here on this wall and redo everything and put the pressure washer over there like we had in the design, which I think works out way better, and then utilize this for cabinets. So this is kind of what he was working with before. just because he's in that transition period with the garage. Obviously, it's a little disheveled, stuff all over the place, but this is real life. This is what people are dealing with. And probably what many of you are dealing with if you're watching this video and trying to learn, hey, what can I do in my space that's going to really take it to the next level, or help me clean up all this stuff, or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in your garage. So sorry, Chris, I'm airing all your dirty laundry here. So just more photos of the inside, and some of these photos he sent later on as we're trying to really see where power panels were, and plumbing and shelving and stuff like that. We really wanted to get a clear view of what was what. So let's see, which one is the photo versus the render? So here's the render that we did. Pardon the black background. I think I've done this for social media or something like that. So here's the render. Got it from that view. And then he sent me the photo that he took, and it's just about identical. So here's our render, here's the photo, and if you squint really hard, you can't hardly tell the difference, which is pretty cool. It's awesome to be able to see a space in 3D, design it out, and give a client a true representation of what the potential of their space has, what they can see. And obviously you can see it with Chris's garage here, that we designed it out, he executed, installed, did the painting, did the lights, did the flooring, and it's the same thing. Like it's exactly what you see in the render, which is, it's just crazy. It's so cool to see that come to life, and to be able to be a part of that process all the way from those original pictures where it was a little bit messy from moving in and all of that stuff, to now seeing it come together and having those cabinets installed and being able to see this render come to life is really cool. And then we can pull up of course the drawing right next to it and be able to see how close it is. And his photo, you can't quite see the beam that's going through the middle, but it's just right up there on the ceiling, which is how we had it in the drawing and the render. So really cool to see. So let's jump into the design and talk about some of the things that we had to take into consideration. So we went through several different iterations on this cabinet array. At first we had it capped with lockers on either side, and then there wasn't really enough space to fit the 965 locker over here on the left, so we wanted to make it as symmetrical as we could, and he wanted to have space for the Tesla wall panels, which came in later on in the design process. Because initially, remember, the Tesla charger was on the back wall. I believe it was going to stay over there initially, and then it changed to where it would be on the front wall, the Tesla wall panels would be on the back, and we had to account for that with the cabinets and make sure that we weren't encroaching on it too much. So what we settled with here is a fairly symmetrical array. It's a little bit off on this left side compared to this side, but this cabinet, and this cabinet are all dead center, with the TV, which is dead center between these windows. So it works out to really visually work with the space, that even though we have a little bit shorter space on the right side than we do on the left side, it all feels symmetrical and seems like it works seamlessly. He may have installed, no, I think he got it pretty much right on. So if you look at where he has that cabinet, I mean, he has it dead on. So it's pretty much perfectly symmetrical. It's probably maybe an inch off. It's kind of hard to tell from this view. I'll have to ask him if he was able to get it dead on symmetrical, or if there was a little bit of wiggle room where he had to shift it a little bit to the left. But symmetrical is what we went for on this one specifically, even though it's not symmetrical in the sense that there's lockers on either side. He really just didn't want to block that right side initially with them putting these Tesla wall panels in, just because of he wasn't sure what they would need to do to install and all of that stuff, or maintenance down the road. So we left that as is, and that'll give him a nice spot that he can put his vacuum, and stuff like that. So he wasn't really planning on focusing too much on tool storage, and was really more focused on bulk items, getting those cleaned up and put away as much as possible. It's difficult with this setup because we had these windows and then we wanted to include the TV, that there's obviously no space for upper cabinets. So we've got the one locker over here on the side, and we only had room for the 650 wide locker, which doesn't give us a ton of storage capacity, even though it is pretty deep. And then we really focused on larger drawer storage, double door cabinets to the left and right of the waste bin, and then a single drawer cabinet over on the right with the 6 drawers for any tools and that sort of thing. The array on the opposite side of the garage is also not going to be too tool focused. He's got his main water line for the house right here. It's going to fit perfectly underneath the bridge unit. So he's not going to be able to do a portable cabinet or anything in there that's going to sit flush, unfortunately. Unless he goes maybe with the shallow version. But this one again is just a general array, a nice work surface. It'll probably be a little bit of a catch-all as you're coming in and out of the house without things cluttering up. You can put them in the cabinets at the top or in the drawers. But it'll just be another little spot where you can have some tools and stuff, and a dedicated sitting area, tinkering area, and stuff like that, which will be pretty cool. So normally we wouldn't spec out this many doored cabinets, but for his situation it made sense for being able to store bulk items, and since we didn't have any upper cabinets. All right, so let's hop back over to the design proposal, because you'll be able to see, the initial, let's scroll back up here, the initial plan that we put together for him. Well, this one's not the initial, this is the final plan, so this is how it sits now, but we have the flooring just like this, and you could see from his photo that he went with that same design. It turned out really cool. This is slate gray, jet black, and pearl silver on the interior. Pearl silver is extremely bright. It's almost white, depending on how you look at it. It matches the harbor gray walls really well. But the tritone color is something that we started messing with. So obviously in this space here, we've got the slate gray with the inset black border, and then we have the slate gray exterior border next to the walls. And I wanted to be able to brighten up the rooms a little bit, especially because we're doing a lot of black ceilings. Having that much dark floor and then dark ceiling, it was just a little bit too much. So I started including a tricolor look like this, where we kept the slate gray border, and then the jet black inset border, and then made the interior space the pearl silver. We've since modified it from there, and a lot of what we design now is we're doing a slate gray outside border still next to the wall. The inset border we're doing in pearl silver, so a really bright pearl silver inset border rather than the black. And then the interior we're doing the pearl gray. And it's a little bit closer in terms of there's not as much contrast, but the way that it sets it off with that pearl silver border is really cool. It's how I did it in my garage, and I really like it. A few other guys have done it, and it's pretty cool. But the tricolor look works if you keep it simple like this, and you have just a central parking pad an inset border on the outside and then another color for the very perimeter. If you start getting crazy with designs and stuff like that, you've heard us harp on this a lot. Don't do checkerboard and plaid designs and stuff. It looks cool in a photo, but as soon as it's in your space, it's too messy and it's too much going on. And you may not think about it consciously, but subconsciously, you're going to know that there's just too much busyness, too much chaos. Because the floor already has that checkerboard look to it, because of the quadrants within a single tile, if you start doing other designs, it gets really busy really fast. So try and shy away from that. If you're going to do 3 colors like this is like the max design that you're going to want to go with. Don't get crazy with it because it'll just be too much. I didn't do, we could have just flipped like Matt's traditional design and done a black border with pearl silver inside and then pearl silver as the perimeter, but it's too bright. And the pearl silver, I don't think, offsets the wall enough. So you end up with the wall and the floor just kind of bleeding together. It did work really well in the 2-car garage we did for the garage giveaway. That's the first time I'd really kind of designed out a pearl silver garage as the main color. And it worked. It looked really cool. But I think I would prefer to have that darker border, that darker perimeter. So that's where I did the tricolor, is kind of how that started. I like having the slate gray along the perimeter, just not everywhere. It's a little too dark for me. But it's all personal preference. Matt still really likes it. Let's talk about lighting for just a second when it comes to the overhead lights. We get a lot of questions on, hey, how many overhead lights should I put in my garage? I've got this much space. What kind of spacing should I put them at? That's always a common question, is how far apart should I put it? It doesn't really matter as much. As long as you have the correct number of lights, really you just want to separate them in a way that everything is symmetrical and you're filling the entire space as evenly as possible. So it's a little weird with Chris's garage because he has this beam right through the middle almost. And so what we did was we separated this space from this space. As you can see, these overhead lights on this side are pretty much lined up right in the middle of this right side. And then with these lights on this other side, we did 2 columns. And we centered all of those unifiedly between this beam and the left wall. So it really centered it up in this space, pretty nice. The spacing works out that it's pretty symmetrical all the way through. The thing you want to think about in a garage, as long as you don't have a really deep garage, or if you've got a typical, say anywhere between 20 to 20, 20 by 20 or 24 by 24, you can get away with 6 fixtures in your space. 10 feet and less, do the 4 bulb. Anything above 12 feet, do 6 bulb. That 10 to 12 foot range, you can kind of go either way, whether you like a lot of light or maybe you don't want it too bright. But think about your parking spaces. Your parking space is always going to be 3 lights like this. So parking space. Now, even though this isn't a parking space over here because it's cabinets, it's still the same amount of space, basically. Same thing over here, it's a parking space. So you're always going to do a row of 3 lights perpendicular to how you're parking when you're doing the overhead lights. It's a different story if you're doing Cree or DMF can lights or something like that. It's a totally different thing. But for the overhead lights, just think about it in banks of 3 per parking space. So if you have a 20 to 24 foot deep garage, you're going to take this middle light and center it front to back for the whole space. And then you want your next light to be, 2 or 3 feet off the back wall, and the front light to be 2 or 3 feet off the back wall. And then whatever this space in between ends up being is what it ends up being. It doesn't really matter as much as you think. So as long as you're doing that 3 fixture column per parking space, it's a pretty good guideline to laying it out for your garage. So if you have a 3-car garage, you're probably going to do 3 rows or 3 columns. If it's extra deep, say your garage is, over 24 feet deep, you could probably add another row in the back to make it 4 deep. And then at that point, again, just make it symmetrical. So you give it 2 or 3 feet off the back wall, 2 or 3 feet off the front wall, and then symmetrically place your 4 lights so that they're evenly spaced. And then same thing for left and right. So if it's a 2-car garage, 20 feet wide, 24 feet wide, you're going to do 2 columns of lights. Get those probably, I would say, 3 to 4 feet off the left and the right sides. So that way you have adequate light distribution all the way throughout is a good way to think about it. So those are some of the common questions we get about lights. Specifically the overhead lights is just, hey, how many do I need for my garage? Do I need the 6 bulb or do I need the 4 bulb? 3 lights per parking space. So in a 2-car garage, you're going to do 6 fixtures. Up to 10 feet, maybe 11 feet, do the 4 bulb fixture. Above 12 feet, do the 6 bulb. In that 10 to 12 foot space that is kind of a gray area, go either way. You're not going to be disappointed with either light. Maybe just judge it by whether you want to go really bright or maybe not quite as bright. One last thing I want to talk about is power and what kind of things to take into consideration when you're planning out your cabinets and planning out your garage. A lot of times we'll get a question of, hey, I want to do my design with you guys, but can you go ahead and just let me know where I should put outlets first so we can get that out of the way? Well, we really need to do the design to figure out where those outlets need to be. So it's kind of hard to just say, oh, we'll just put them every 6 feet and at 48 inches high. Well, it's not really that case. We're going to put them specifically placed for the cabinets that we're going to choose, for the pressure washer that we're going to choose, if you're doing a lift and so on and so forth. So it's something that we have to orient and take into consideration for the entire design rather than just, hey, do some outlets, every 6 feet, at whatever height. You could take that approach if you wanted to, but I think we can get more specific with it. So you'll see here with these cabinet arrays, the MSS Plus line is really cool in that these bottom drawers can have power bars installed into them. If we go back to our floor plan, you'll see there's another one here. This cabinet is a waste bin cabinet. You can't put power in that, so that outlet is actually behind this TV here. But the lower drawers have the ability to mount a power bar in them, which makes them awesome for charging, Milwaukee tools and Ego batteries or anything else you might have. It's really easy to integrate those in. So what we'll do is we'll spec out, let's see if we can go to, actually I can show you from the technical drawing where we spec'd out those outlets to be. So we go just below the top of the cabinet. So that way when you're installing these cabinets, you'll have enough room behind that you can reach down and plug things in or change, whatever you have plugged in back there. The back panels provide enough space that you can access, pretty easily what you need to back there so that you can put the cabinets up against the wall, have enough space for your back panels and your posts, and still be able to reach back and plug things in and that sort of thing. So we're always wanting to go right below, the top of the cabinet, so that way it's going to be concealed, and then you're not ever going to have any outlets showing. A lot of guys will want to put them above the work surface. So if you're doing like Sabre cabinets, that might make sense. You could do the outlet up here because you can't really integrate a power bar into the cabinet like you can with MSS Plus. MSS Plus, though, the whole ethos of the cabinet line is clean organization, putting everything in its place, a place for everything, and having everything nice and clean. We can have that same approach with our outlets and tuck them away behind the cabinets, have our power bars tucked in the bottom drawer, which really helps us keep everything super clean and organized, which is awesome. These are at 2 feet 9 inches. So that's something to keep into keep in thought as you're planning out your space. If you're going to just spec out your cabinets yourself, MSS Plus, you want to keep them at that height. And then let's see, we've got for the other cabinet array that has the uppers, which is the most common type of setup, you can see we've got them spec'd out here at 78 inches. Now it's a little off in here, but that's why we specified this height regardless of where the actual image is. You want the center of these outlets at 78 inches because then that'll put the top of the outlet right below the back panel or the wall cabinet that's up there. So that way you can jump up on your countertop, reach back there, you'll have enough room again to be able to plug in or unplug, and it makes it really easy during installation to be able to put all the power where you need it for all of these cabinets. All right guys, so that one kind of went in a few different directions for that video, but that's typically how it goes for the designs that we do. Is we get into a lot of different facets of things to consider and what we talk about with the client, and there's always going to be something new to think about with the design that you're doing, or if you're planning out your own space. So hopefully going through those design proposals, the technical drawings, gives you an idea of what to expect if you come get design help from us here in the drafting room, or if you're planning out your garage and you want to be able to have something to show your contractors or plumbers or electricians, kind of give you an idea of maybe what things you need to specify for them so that you can give them the information that they need to do the job properly. Of course, if you're buying the stuff from us, send them to the product pages. The product pages have a ton of info. Find the YouTube videos on those specific items. Thanks for walking through this one with me, and hopefully you were able to gain some ideas out of this, or maybe some of the things that you need to be able to share with your contractors, or some of the design considerations that'll help you in your garage project that you're working on or with your shop. Again, these things can a lot of times translate to even larger spaces like we talked about with the lights and being able to scale those up. So hopefully that was helpful for you. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. We'll definitely be doing more of these, so we'll see you next time.